What is your Tinder horror story? A little backstory: a few years ago I was dating this girl and her father really hated me. Which was a bit odd, as most parents love me or at least lie about it real well. He was just a huge prick and I always called him on his shit. Anyways, her parents got divorced, we broke up a few months later, etc etc. Fast forward to around a year later. Me and girl from Tinder were dating for a few months and things were starting to get serious. We're at the point where she wants me to meet her family. Mother, stepfather, little sister. Why not? I have no problems meeting them, let's do it, I said. She told me how excited her stepdad was to meet me. As it turns out, we both happen to be Kansas City Chiefs fans. Well, fuck me if it wasn't the same asshole father of my ex-girlfriend. My buddy isn't the smartest man. He picked a chick up and drove to a motel. They were walking into the room and she says, "Oh shit, I forgot my purse in the car, do you mind if I go grab it?" He says, "Yeah, that's fine," and tosses her the keys. 5 minutes later he walks outside wondering where she is and his car is gone. Added for clarification, yes, he got his car back. I think the police found it about a week later. I don't think she was ever caught though. If you're in Baltimore, swipe and don't let her near your keys. Buddy of mine hit it off with this girl and after a few days, she invited him over to a house party. Sure, he says, what could go wrong? He shows up and is introduced to a few of her friends, all guys. As the night carries on, more and more guys show up and very few girls are actually at the party. After they start talking about how they all know this girl, they find out that she invited them all from Tinder. Every guy was there not to hook up, but to populate this chick's birthday party. Added autocorrects from phone. Got a Tinder notification on my I don't have Tinder and was holding my girlfriend's phone. Tinder date with a famous chef where I was taken to a dive bar, where he promptly started talking about how famous he was. We drank and watched sports. He proceeded to tell me you're cute and this eventually went to I am going to make you bleed. He then invited one of his friends to come along. I went outside and he came up to kiss me. I was drunk, so I kissed back. Eventually he proceeded to tell me how he was being charged with battering his ex-girlfriend, but he totally didn't do it. Eventually when it came time to pay the bill, he lost his wallet. Of course, I get stuck with it. "I'll pay you back." Needless to say, I never got a payment. Then he leaned up against me. I thought he was trying to kiss me again, but I looked down, and he was peeing on me. In the street. Peeing. On. Me. I swiftly, being too inebriated to drive, went and got myself a hotel room and a hot shower. Never again. Started speaking to this guy on Tinder a few months ago. He seemed alright, but not my normal type. Regardless, we started speaking for a couple of days. I didn't realize how stupid I was until now, but I mentioned where I worked. The night I mentioned my workplace, I saw a guy walk past that looked a lot like him. I hadn't met him in person, so I wasn't 100. I forgot about it and a couple of days later, it was quiet in work but my phone battery was low. I said I'd speak to him later before my phone died. Him coming in 10 minutes later with a fucking iPhone charger. Yes, this might have been a nice gesture if you know, I'd actually met him face to face before. This was really weird because he said he lived the other side of the city from where I work. I wanted to cut ties straight away, but I thought I'd return the charger after I finished work. He said he would be in a bar around the corner, so when I finished I met up with him, gave him his charger and made some excuse to go home. To my horror, I saw on his Instagram that he'd taken a smiling selfie earlier in the day with the caption, "I'm now a taken man." I'd seen him like not even twice. To make it even scarier, for a good few weeks, every time I'd finish work I would see him casually walking past on his own, exactly at the time I finished. Really creeped me out for a while. The only Tinder date I went on, the woman told me her goal was to get pregnant in the next few months. I noped right out of there. Showed up to the restaurant, waited about 30 minutes. Ordered myself some food and was about to leave when he texted me, "There's a liquor store across the street from the restaurant, can you pick me up 2 6-packs?" I told him I wouldn't. He says he's decided to play frisbee with his dog instead. Deleted app, went to liquor store, picked up wine and went home. He texted me for a month or so after to tell me he's just bought tickets to see me dance. I'm a retired ballerina, haven't been in anything for a few years. Then he texts me an hour after and tells me how great I was on stage. I never responded. Dating is too confusing. I'm all done. Tinder guy was apparently engaged when we met and while we were dating. Also found out 2 weeks after the fact, that he got married. We had still been talking every day. I started talking to this really sweet guy for about 2 weeks and things were going well. Then I started getting calls from this girl, who he claimed was his crazy roommate that was in love with him and kept trying to get him fired from jobs. Turns out, she wasn't the one lying, she was actually his live-in girlfriend, and they had moved here together from a different state. Apparently he wasn't actually a citizen, and was trying to obtain papers. Thanks, Tinder. Met a girl at her work at like a moment's notice. She was a waitress and there was literally nobody else in the entire place. We talked for a few hours, then another dude shows up to meet her. From Tinder. She would later blog about the experience and describe me as dull and unattractive. She apologized to me the day she posted it. No hard feelings, I just thought it was a crazy story. Added link removed. Met girl. She was quite vocal about no hookups. We went out, got drunk, she used the line "wanna come back to mine and put your penis in my vagina?" So I did. Just as we started she said, "Oh, I love you, do you love me too?" I didn't reply, I just thought concentrate. It was a good night, but then she got really demanding and argumentative. It takes me a while to get used to starting to see someone. I like to get to know them a bit. She was talking about kids within a day of meeting me and I wasn't quite ready for the conversation. Then she got really shitty that I wasn't as committed as her, called me all sorts of names and said that I shouldn't be on Tinder if I wasn't going to take our relationship seriously. It was a whirlwind. It felt like a year's worth of emotion bundled into about 3 days. I deactivated my account and stuck with masturbation. There was this guy, he was a solid 10 in his pictures. He messages me, asks me if I want to meet up for coffee. So I say yes. He messages me and tells me that I have to pick him up. Okay, whatever, I'll do it. I pick him up, and we decided to go eat instead. He's super funny and cute so we hang out some more after dinner. Then he pulls out his phone and proceeds to tell me that he has a son and his baby mama took off to Washington but has no idea what part or anything with him and he hasn't seen him in months. So he then takes out his phone and tells me to go through a folder on his phone of pictures of his son. Like 300 of them. He sat there and made me look through every single one, and he would tell me the backstory to basically every single video and photo in that folder. I felt so bad, but man, I was happy when he left. That whole date just got so weird after that. He did some more stuff but those are good stories for another time. Lol. I promise you people, he was definitely a 10. I showed pictures of him to my friends and all of them said they would date him with the baggage. He texted me like 8 or 9 times every day after that and I never replied. I ended up having to block him on all social media because he wouldn't take the hint. Thinking back now. Poor guy. Oh well. Matched with my cousin. Went on a date with a girl who had already told her whole family about me, before we even met. And she wanted me to meet them in person on the first date. Nope. Posted this in Tiffy but here this happened over the weekend and I'm still processing it. I 24M used Tinder once before and met a cool chick and it didn't work out so I decided to try again. What could go wrong, right? So after a few days of using Tinder, I stopped launching the app but left my profile active, so I kept getting a few matches. Well, one night my friends and I decide to go bar hopping in a pretty well popular area because why not? We're all pretty smashed at a bar, and I'm wearing the same sweater in my profile picture. Apparently some girl I matched with sent me a few messages. I checked it was 10 within a 2-hour period and I never responded. She recognizes me and starts yelling at me. Mind you, I didn't have any idea what was going on as I'm drunk off my ass. She's going psycho saying WTF the adventuring panda, why did you never respond to me? I responded with who are you? Apparently this drove her nuts. She started yelling combinations of words I've never heard before, then she grabbed my drink and threw it in my face, then security came and threw us both out on our asses. She then followed my buddies and I to the car and is yelling and screaming still. While we were driving off she threw her shoe at the car. My buddies were laughing the entire time. I think I'm just gonna stay inside for the rest of my life. TLDR Cycle Lady ruined the party cause I didn't respond to her Tinder messages. I met up with this guy I had been talking to a few weeks. Tall, dark and handsome, originally from Turkey, world traveler, etc. Anyway, we meet up for sushi and things are going great. Tons of stuff in common and then it was like a fucking psycho switch flipped. He started talking about how now that we were going out, I couldn't wear nail polish because he got weirded out holding hands with someone who wore nail polish and how he wanted to have a daughter but freeze her in time at the age of 4 so that she'd always be a daddy's girl and love him forever, and how when we got old we'd have to have sex with the lights off since I'd be wrinkly and unattractive, and just went on and on. I literally just stared at him speechless and tried to get through the date expecting, at the very least, a free meal. But no free meal. In fact, more expensive meal. This guy had the nerve to ask the waitress to split the check when he ordered twice what we paid. I stormed out, and never talked to him again. This was back when Tinder first came out and wasn't quite as known as a hookup app. We met and had a great first date. Second date was even better. Things kept going for about 2 months when she told me she went out with me originally in an attempt for a dinner with schmucks type thing where her and all her friends would bring the worst Tinder date. We both really liked each other, but I couldn't get over how we started. I messaged a cute blonde girl one day, got a response, and after a while of back and forth making each other laugh and getting along, I mentioned I'm in a wheelchair, and suddenly she was losing her fucking mind talking about our future and how she wants to explore places like Australia and I wouldn't be able to do that with her because of my wheelchair. I let her go on for a while to see if she'd ever bring it around to a normal person thought process, but it never happened. She lost her fucking mind. Not mine, but my brother's. He lives at home with my mother still. So my brother met a chick on Tinder. Took her on a date, ended up bringing her home for night, and then that was that. A few weeks later my mother went to the backyard and noticed the door to her camper was open. There was a bunch of clothes and a pair of faux Uggs boots that belonged to this chick. Turns out she had been sneaking into the camper at night and sleeping there and doing drugs. My brother had no idea of this, and my mom called the cops immediately, and it turns out the chick had a warrant out for her arrest. She's still in jail. It didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine started hooking up with this girl on Tinder about 1.5 years ago. She wasn't very attractive, and he would always talk about how much he hated her, but I guess the sex was alright because he kept seeing her. About 2 months into this he decides he's going to end things with her and find a new fuck buddy. Well, he heads over to her house to break up with her and is instead greeted with the girl telling him that she is pregnant, and that it is his. First thing I tell him to do is to get a DNA test to make sure that it is in fact his kid. He insists that it is, and doesn't get the test. He convinces her to put the baby up for adoption, but she decides pretty late into the pregnancy that she doesn't want to give up the baby and wants to raise it. Fast forward to a month ago, and my friend is stuck raising this kid with this girl he doesn't like. Well, I guess she didn't actually put my buddy down as the father on the baby's birth certificate and had been collecting money from the government for being a single mother or something, and the government wanted her to try and track down the father. That is how my friend found out that he might not actually be the father of the baby he's been raising. Still haven't heard back on whether he is or is not the father, but I hope for his sake that he isn't. Kids, if you're gonna hook up with someone you just met on the internet, wear a fucking condom. I went on a date with a guy and the entire time he was talking about how men are superior and how there have been scientific studies to show that women have an emotional reaction to the color red when they see it. I wonder why he was single. I've been on quite a few Tinder dates. Most are pretty standard dinner, drinks, occasional bang, etc. This isn't really a horror story, just the one that sticks out as the most bizarre funny. This girl we'd been chatting for like a week or so, hit me up around 10 p.m. on a Sunday night and said she'd be in my neck of the woods on her way home and wanted to see if I wanted to hang out. I did. So she comes over, and she's got a bag of Mexican food with her. So I put on an episode of Always Sunny, and she busts out a monster bean and cheese burrito and a carne asada quesadilla. She asked if I wanted any, but I had already eaten. So this skinny, mind you girl puts down both of these fucking things in like 10 minutes. Just destroyed like 2 pounds of food. She wipes her face off, grabs my hand, rubs her tits with my hands, and gets up and goes, "Velp, I gotta go, you can tell your friends you at least got something out of it." Never to be seen again. I'm still in love with her. Edit. Here's a screenshot of our last words together. Met up with a really hot bi-curious girl. I'm a lesbian. This girl had only ever been with men and wanted to experiment with girls. She was stupidly hot, like hot. We matched and we chatted for like 2 days. I soon found out we had no common ground at all. Like, none. However, she wanted to meet, and me being the horny les gremlin I am agreed just because she was hot and I could take her girl on girl virginity. We agreed to meet one day, picked her up and we went for drinks. Walked back to mine and chatted a little more over alcoholic root beer and Breaking Bad. We started making out, she took off my bra, I took off hers, she took my pants off, I took hers off. We started kissing, touching, feeling. She starts fingering me, I can tell straight away she is a first-timer. She starts jabbing at my poor vag with her half-inch acrylics. I tell her to slow down a little and be a little more gentle about it. All of a sudden, she bursts into tears and says she's not ready. I tell her it's fine blah blah. She ends up staying at my place and we cuddle for the night until I sobered up enough to drive her back home in the morning. Later the next day I go for a piss and realize it stings like a bitch and my pee smells dreadful and is cloudy. Run to the doctors because I'm a casual hypochondriac and take a pee sample. Doctor sticks the paper in my pee and yup, straight away it shows I have a UTI. I didn't piss after little Miss Bi-Curious scratched my insides out. Bitch gave me a UTI and blue balls. I dated someone I met from Tinder for a month. Seemed good on paper, master's student, yoga teacher, cultured, etc. Found out she was doing heroin and didn't consider that a big problem. I actually had to explain to her the definition of a high-functioning addict because she felt that having a job and going to school meant the heroin thing wasn't a problem. We broke up and she went back to her junkie ex-BF. Bullet dodged. Edit lol the people pming me trying to confirm if I was simultaneously dating their own shitty GF. If you find yourself wondering if I'm describing your GF, you should just break up with her immediately. I had been on a couple of dates with this girl that I met on Tinder, and learned that she was really into the rockabilly scene. I found out that a local nightclub was hosting a rockabilly-themed night and so I took her. She had dressed to the nines and we were having a great time in the club. Suddenly this guy accidentally tipped a drink on her 50s style dress. The guy apologized profusely. She storms over to grab her coat and bag and on the way out she just punches the guy in the face. Everyone in the club was shocked. I took her outside and told her she couldn't react like that, and that's when she took her heel off and hit me square in the face for siding with the guy. Blood everywhere. I never answered her calls after that. Oh, and she used to be a stripper and cam girl. This adds nothing to the story but I just like telling people. Pew pew. Met a girl with multiple daddy tattoos. Red flag 1 who claimed to be mostly a lesbian. Red flag 2 but just wanted to fuck. We met up, hit it off, went back to my place, had sex, and she left at 3 a.m. after we fell asleep pretty early without saying a word. Red flag 3. Week later she called me up, came back over, same routine except she requested that I not look at her in the eye. Red flag 4 and eventually she requested that we only fuck doggy because she didn't want me to look at her at all. Red flag 5. This went on a few more times before I got tired of it and tried to distance myself from her. Then my roommate warned me that he knew her from his hometown and that she was unhinged. Red flag 6 and known to destroy people's property. Red flag 7. She kept texting me, but once I started to reject her advances, she would send me walls of text and leave me voicemails about how I was disrespecting her as a woman and that she wasn't just a piece of meat. Red flags 8-9. TLDR I'm the Ron Rivera of red flags. Edit I should clarify that she didn't have multiple tattoos that said daddy, although one of them did. Rather, her tattoos were monoliths to the sordid and horrific events of her past, i.e., daddy tattoos. I met this guy on Tinder and we had a couple really fun dates. I was pretty into him, so on our third date, I decided I wanted to have sex with him. He took me out for a really nice date and then he invited me back to his place for a glass of wine. One thing led to another and we started making out on his couch, fully clothed. But this lasted forever. I was ready to go, if you know what I mean. I didn't want to make out the whole night. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and I took off all of my clothes. Then he sits up, still fully clothed, and looks at me, and says, "I can't have sex with you, I have a STD." Possibly most awkward moment of my life. I tried to be super nice about it, but I promptly got dressed and left. And as many of my friends have pointed out, I am extremely grateful that he told me. Edit he did tell me which STD, it is incurable. En route to the worst date ever, this guy texted me from the burrito place we were meeting, to tell me he'd already ordered me the salad. I repeat, salad. At a burrito place. Also, was this the past? Was I now incapable of placing my own food order? Anyway. After arriving with my salad ready, beside his plate of tacos he spent the next half an hour telling me about his model ex-girlfriend and how passionate their breakup sex had been, last weekend. The final straw was even after telling him I wasn't a big fan of smoking he literally asked a stranger for cigarettes and then chain-smoked them beside me. One time I messaged a girl. She didn't message me back. I had been talking to this girl on Tinder for a while and we decided we wanted to smash. The problem is I had asked my roommate if I could have the room later. Apparently, unlike the rest of the animals you people seem to have as roommates. So when I went to sign this girl in, we have a proctor in the lobby at my university's dorms. My roommate and several other friends of mine placed a Bluetooth speaker in my room and hid in the hallway, waiting for me to get back. I didn't see them and things started to get hot and heavy when "Let's Get It On" started playing from somewhere in the room. I started searching and after 5 minutes, while the song I just had sex was finishing playing, I found the Bluetooth speaker under my roommate's bed behind his dresser. Yes, I had to move both of them. I found the power button but not before the wonderful sound of hardcore pornography filled the room. The two of us decided to call it so we threw on some clothes. I walked her past all 6 of the bastards. I never saw her again. Met this girl on Tinder, invited her into bed. She accepts, comes over, we have fantastic sex, a lot. Same thing the next night. Thing is, she's moving to Montana in a few weeks for a job. A cook position in a national park. She invites me out there, I look into the job and eventually get it. We decide to start dating. Met twice, known her for a month, I'm an idiot to keep it exclusive at adult summer camp there in Montana. I get out there, she freaks out and breaks up with me because she has cancer, cancels the breakup, does it again the next night, I agree and say it's over. Proceeds to cock block me constantly throughout the summer and we scream at each other in the kitchen. Poor choices all around. As a man in a long-term pre-Tinder relationship, I am really living vicariously through these stories and they are outstanding. Bless you people. This didn't actually come about through Tinder, but rather through an equivalent app. So, I meet the guy there and he's just incredible. Clever, good-looking, funny. You get the type. The only catch is that he doesn't live in my city. After a couple of weeks of messaging and phone calls, we decide to meet up and we settle on that I would be going to him because I'd never been to his city and that seemed like a fun little adventure. Right? Wrong. The big day comes and I embark on the 2-5-hour train journey and I get all excited and I can't wait to get off the train, and then he's not at the platform when I get off. Try to call him to no avail, and after 4 hours of waiting, I decide to take the next train back home. Haven't heard from him since. TLDR, met a guy from a different city relatively far away. Stands me up when I go out there to meet him. But I don't really have a horror story, since I've gotten about one date out of Tinder which went alright. But I've been rejected plenty, the highlight of which was this girl, who seemed pretty interesting and was reasonably attractive, so I swiped right. And it turned out that we matched. Hooray! So, I sent her a message. Something clever, along the lines of, "Hey, a match, did we just become best friends?" Though, I can't take credit for that one. I did steal that from Reddit Step Brothers. Happily, she responded rather promptly, so I was eager to read what she'd sent, cause for the most part women just kinda ignore me. Anyway, I opened it up and all it said was I swiped the wrong way. Matched with a girl, and she was quite pretty in the face. All of her pictures were mostly of just her face, upper body, but I didn't pay any mind. She initiated the conversation, and she was immediately into hooking up, so of course I invited her over. She gets there and I answer the door, and turns out she was about 6 feet 5 inches. I am 5 feet 8 inches on a good day. I let out an audible holy shit and she picked me up and carried me to the bedroom like a baby. No regrets. Downloaded Tinder for quick and simple hookups. First couple matches were pretty decent. Drinks, sex, etc. The third girl, however, wanted to take things a little slower. First date, a little making out. Second date, same thing but still won't go home with me. Third date, we had some really awkward sex with the lights on and no music. I was so nervous, I had a hard time keeping it up and she was barely wet. We've been dating for 10 months and she is going to meet my parents this weekend. The horror. Edit, holy shit, this blew up. Hopefully my girlfriend never downloads Reddit. Edit 2, so apparently people here don't have sex with music on or the lights off. Which is totally fine. However, where I'm from or what have you, music during sex is fairly normal and usually the lights are dimmed, at least when it comes to earlier encounters. That's not to say currently, it is pitch black when I have sex all the time. Sometimes the lights are on, sometimes there's no music. Secondly, it's usually some sort of mix of R&B and hip-hop. Miguel and Frank Ocean are usually an easy go-to. Finally, the reason this is comically horrific, is I had no intention of finding someone I truly connected with via Tinder. I was looking for simple and easy hookups. However, I accidentally fell in love and I am so happy she gets to meet my parents this weekend. Also, nowadays the sex is anything but awkward, and we have a very healthy relationship. Happened a year ago. Met this guy. Similar interests, looked great in his pictures. We decided to meet up on a Sunday for lunch. I was so hungover from a friend's Christmas party that I threw up upon arrival. He didn't seem to mind. He didn't order a drink and I couldn't order one due to the hangover. Once the hangover subsided, I suggested we walk around and head into a bar. He doesn't like the first bar, had a bad experience at the next bar, and keeps on passing on them. Until we finally get to his favorite bar. He orders drinks, and after a few more drinks I suggest heading to a wine bar. He passes, because he confesses that he's only 20. And while his profile said he worked at a local college, it was a work-study position, because he is a junior there. Maybe it was the hangover, maybe it was the exhaustion, but I still brought him home. Things occurred, and I found out he was a virgin. He ran away in tears and threw up on my apartment stairs. Repeated the process once he was 21, and it was almost the same situation. Never again. We talked for a couple of hours, drank some wine, watched a movie and we had sex. Then things went a little downhill. We laid in bed and suddenly it looked like she was about to black out, so I helped her sit right up and asked if I could help her, get her some water and stuff. But she didn't speak a word. She just sat there with her hands in her hair for a couple of minutes and then puked all over my sheets. At this point I wanted to get her to the shower ASAP, but she was just stunned or something. I didn't know what to do. After a couple minutes I finally convinced her to get up and brought her to the shower so she could clean herself while I could clean the sheets and all that. Every 5 minutes I checked on her if she was okay, but she would just sit on the floor with the shower running and wouldn't talk. It was all very awkward. After 20 minutes or so I brought her a towel and some clothes and we sat on the edge of my bed and she told me that she was born without a womb. She cried, I calmed her down and we finally went to sleep without a blanket or sheets. I didn't have spare ones in my student apartment. The next day I made breakfast and she went home. Weirdest date I ever had. I matched this pretty cute looking girl. She didn't look like she was in super great shape, but she didn't look obese or anything. Well, we exchanged numbers and I called her. She agreed to come over to my house, so I waited outside while she found her way over. She pulls up in a super badass car, so I'm like hell yeah. When she gets out, it looked like her suspension let out a sigh of relief. She was at least 300 pounds. Nice girl though. She gave me a back massage, then I told her I was tired afterwards and she left. Went out with a girl, and had a great time together. I only knew her first name. We were texting later that night after our date and I told her to add me on Snapchat and gave her my username. She added me and up popped a request from first name last name. Her last name being my mom's very rare maiden name. She was my second cousin. We clarified things briefly and never spoke again. Friend saw my girlfriend, now ex, on Tinder. He was a bro and told me. Nightmare at the time, but I'm glad I found out. Bots, scammers and girls that don't respond to messages after we match. Overall it is a delightful waste of time. Met a girl a week back. She was a little iffy about me being in an open relationship, so she stops chatting. Resumes again a few days later and we're talking about meeting up. We exchange numbers and text a bit. She occasionally pushes the conversation sexually without much build-up. I go with it, it stops. Repeat. Including a few naked pictures Norse, and I send some back, they're well regarded. On Friday we decide to hang out Sunday. Saturday we're texting a bit at night and it's gonna be so fucking on. Sunday morning I send a text to see what's up. She sends back a short vid of titty wiggling and says come play. I'm pumped and ask her where I'm heading. The end. No more texts, no messages on Tinder, nothing. I send a few hello? Texts her way and get nothing. I hope she's okay and just got cold feet. I hope this mainly because she's a fellow human, but also partially because if something bad and mysterious happened to her and the police go through her phone, I'll be suspect numero uno. Damn, gonna go hug my wife. I met my Tinder girl at the train station and she wasn't the most talkative of sorts, but I maintained conversation all the way up to the bar we'd agreed on earlier. Only when we got there, she refused to go in, saying she didn't like the look of it. We carried on down the road with me maintaining most of the conversation, and we passed 9 more bars that she didn't like the look of too. By now we were walking in near silence, so I steered our walk back towards the train station, ready to call it a day and head home. But suddenly, my Tinder lady stopped and pointed at something, saying that's what I want to go there. It was a van selling frozen yogurt. I no longer like froyo. ITT reassurance that being in a fun, stable relationship is a-okay. Hooked up from Tinder. After having sex, the girl whispers in my ear, so, my mom just died. Never saw her again. I asked a girl I liked out to a concert and offered for her to bring a friend because my sister had given me 6 tickets she received for working at the venue. She brought a Tinder date. Needless to say I was pretty fucking bummed out. Someone F-matched me while I was at work. By the time I got home I had 4 messages from her. 1. Are you always wearing a hat? 2. Does it not get really manky? 3. Seriously, do you even have hair? 4. Oh shit, you don't have cancer, do you? FYI, I don't have cancer and hadn't realized that I was wearing a hat in all my pictures. Went on a date with shy Armenian girl, new to town, didn't know anyone. No big deal, I'm friendly. She's shy and to loosen up she starts drinking. But she doesn't stop, she's tiny too, maybe 95 pounds 5 feet 1 inch. So after a while she is just plastered. Dancing on the tabletops. I want to leave her but I'm not a scummy guy and it doesn't feel safe. She ends up wanting to bar hop so we do. I convince her not to drink anymore. She starts making out with random guys. Is she their problem now? No, she still has me escorting her around, makes out with a bartender etc. Now we make it to a new spot, she's making out with a guy full on and I run into my ex with her current boyfriend. Yeah, my date was making out with her boyfriend's rugby teammate. I ended up awkwardly hanging out with my ex while my date left with the teammate. She ran into me again days later and was very embarrassed. The end. On my first and only 30-second Tinder date, she walked out of the subway, looked at me, said sorry, I don't like you and left. Real life swipe left. First date, tells me I've already ruined the night because I chose to sit on the bar side of the restaurant. Second date, she got us kicked out of my favorite restaurant for yelling at 2 guys wearing Pats jerseys. Not a Pats fan, Don't really care. But I don't have enough time for me to get a to-go box for my favorite appetizer, their fries with 4 sauces. 2 weeks go by, calls crying because I didn't call her on my birthday. I agree to a post-birthday lunch date. Tell her I'm not interested in continuing seeing her. She runs to the bathroom crying this is date 3, don't even know her last name. I take a bit of her sandwich. Pay for the lunch, walk home. This is one of 3 awful Tinder experiences. I'm not sure I'm ready to try again. I started taking to this really attractive mid-30 guy. Seemed pretty cool, but he had this idea that women were supposed to be at home, in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant. I'm not that kinda gal. But I figured whatever, maybe he's just joking. So we talk for a few weeks and then he invites himself over to my place. He gets to my place. The picture on his profile had to have been at least 5 years old. He was a lot larger and a lot grayer than his picture. But again, I thought whatever. We go up to my room and we're sitting on my bed talking. He then casually drops "I've raped women before" on me, like it's nothing. Then proceeds to push me onto the bed, face in the mattress, full weight on top of me, taking these huge deep breaths of me, apparently. Then he starts telling me about some of the women he's raped and how they really liked it and would come back for me. WTF, man? I kicked his ass out. Not today, Satan. Matched a girl, talked briefly, and she messaged me asking me to come over and fuck very explicitly. We hooked up and she's obviously insane, so I bail. Months later I get called into the dean of students' office. Got accused of sexual assault. Was under investigation for the majority of a year. Almost got kicked out of school. Shit's super fucked up because they judge based on this thing called the preponderance of the evidence rule. Don't know if that is widely known or unique to my school. Basically, if there's a 51 chance I did it in the eyes of the investigator, I'm guilty. Just recently got my not guilty verdict. Talk about a relief. Met a guy who was shorter than me, hard to do at 5 feet 0 inches, seemed like a nice if somewhat grandpa-like guy. We went to sushi and he had some quirks which I didn't really notice at the time, so we went back to my place to drink a little with my friends. At this point, I began to notice his odd habit of looking me directly in the eyes, fluttering his lashes, and saying, like he was purring or something. Then he tried to get me to walk into a completely dark foresty area. I go to UC Santa Cruz and I was sober enough to realize that was not a good idea, so I tried to get us to walk back. He then hugged me and says, "It's so nice to feel your touch." I noped right on out of that one. Edit verb tense changes.